Childhood adversity and its relationship to brain development. Many of us are fortunate enough to have experienced a warm, loving childhood. However, there are many children who experience childhood adversity. Childhood adversity is an umbrella term for experiences that have the potential to cause trauma that occur between ages 0 through 17. This can include things like abuse, witnessing abuse, or the death of an immediate family member due to suicide. Childhood adversity also includes experiences that create instability and unsafe environments between the ages of 0 to 17. This can include things like substance abuse, mental health problems, parental separation, food or housing insecurity, discrimination, and the incarceration of an immediate family member. According to the National Children's Alliance, more than 60,000 children deal with the death of a relative due to suicide, 600,000 children are abused, and 14 million experience food insecurity in the United States every year. These adverse experiences, as we know, can negatively impact children. It can cause social withdrawal, hoarding food, sleep problems, and other unusual changes in behavior. What researchers are now finding out is that these experiences can also cause long-term effects on the youth's developing brain. Child maltreatment is beginning to be linked with physical changes in brain structure. Child mistreatment has the ability to affect the physical structure and chemical activity of the child's brain. A 2016 study performed by the National Institutes of Health set out to test the relationships that exist between child abuse and reduced cortical thickness in the areas of the brain that are involved in emotional processing. The researchers obtained structural MRI scans from 58 children, 21 who had been exposed to physical or sexual abuse, and the remaining 37 who had never experienced abuse of any kind. The children ranged from ages 13 to 20 years old. The researchers assessed abuse using the Childhood Trauma Questionnaire and the Childhood Experiences of Care and Abuse Interview. Parental education, age, sex, race, and total brain volume were controlled for. The researchers found that the more severe and often a child experienced abuse, the thinner their ventromedial prefrontal cortex, right lateral orbitofrontal cortex, right inferior frontal gyrus, bilateral parohippocampal gyrus, left temporal pole, and bilateral inferior right middle and superior temporal gyri were. Another study performed in 2022 used the MRI data of 149 youth to examine the relationship between experiences of threat and deprivation and cortical thickness in amygdala and hippocampus volumes. The youth ranged from ages 8 to 16 years. Half of the children in the experiment had experienced maltreatment within their lifetime. The other half were the control sample who had not been exposed to maltreatment. The control sample participants were matched to maltreatment participants based on age, sex, and their dominant hand. The researchers found that children who were exposed to threatening experiences, but not deprivation, showed a thinner cortex and cortical regions involved in salience processing, self-reflection, and perceptual processing. The youth also showed reduced subcortical volumes in their amygdala. A study published in 2020 examined the relationship between childhood trauma and smaller hippocampal volumes in children. The study examined 172 children between the ages of 9 through 15 years who had completed a trauma history questionnaire and structural MRI scan. Children who reported 4 or more traumas were placed into a high trauma group, and children who reported 3 or fewer traumas were placed into a low trauma group. The researchers found that there was a significant sex and trauma interaction, such that girls in the high trauma group had greater hippocampal and parahippocampal volumes than the boys in the same group did. Follow-up analyses found that the girls in the high trauma group actually had increased hippocampal and parahippocampal volumes, whereas the boys generally had decreased volumes. Interesting, the low trauma group showed no sex differences. While these structural changes are often viewed as damage that the brain has endured, some researchers believe it to be the brain adapting for immediate survival. The brain begins to develop so that the child may better function in their stressful environment. For instance, the reduced cortical thickness in regions that are involved in salience processing may allow for children to experience enhanced sensitivity and reactivity to their threatening stimuli. We must keep in mind, though, that these adaptations are made in response to harsh environments and may cause behaviors that are deemed inappropriate in healthy environments. Keeping this theory in mind helps us to better understand, empathize, and show compassion for the children and adults around us that are survivors of child abuse.